You're listening to Two Chunks and a Hunk, a movie podcast where we give pumps and dumps.
Hello and welcome to Two Chunks and a Hunk. My name is Jordan Wonders, and this week I am your hunk.
I'm Doge. Boil me, mash me, and stick me in a chunk.
And I'm Carter. It takes the ends a very long time to chunk anything at all.
Wow, that was a very good tree beard.
Thank you very
How long did you practice that?
When did the movie come out? Since 2002.
Every day.
For a good 16 years.
You and your mirror.
Since I was 14. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Me and my best friend.
Jordan, I noticed that you said that you were the hunk.
Yeah.
Who are you and what are you thinking?
Well, allow me to explain. Over our long break from recording, but not a break from releasing,
It's been very nearly a month.
Yeah, it's been strange.
it feels good to be back, by the way.
So much.
But I performed my civic duty. I went and I voted in the Texas midterm elections.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that makes me very hunky indeed.
If you want to be a hunk as well,
Yeah.
go out and vote. Do your
Please
civic duty.
vote.
Yeah, and we'd
Please vote.
encourage anyone else that has any kind of platform. That platform even being having friends, let them know to
Tell
vote.
your people to vote.
We'd
And
be
this-
remiss if we didn't use this
This is going to be kind of our official mission about it. Get your civic booty out to your civic duty.
Nice.
Yes.
Oof.
Yes. Shirts on sale. In
Just
2
found
minutes.
my next tattoo idea.
Ideas. You like no ink on your body.
I'll never do it.
You've got a
but
ton of
I've
ideas.
got
So
so
many
many
ideas.
ideas.
Yeah, that's great.
Speaking of voting, I have a funny story. As Callie and I, we went together as we were walking into the polling station, I think. is what it's called.
Station.
The polling area to vote. So there were a ton of people outside that were like, vote for Lupe Valdez, vote for this person, vote for that person, like all these different people. Like, and my first thought was, has anyone ever gone in and been like, well, I sure don't know who I'm going to vote for.
Right.
And somebody was like, vote for Ted Cruz. And they're like, sounds like a great idea. But this guy came up to us and all he said was, please vote for my dad.
Really?
He did not tell us who his dad was.
Are you serious?
You're just going to write in that guy's dad.
He didn't vote for my dad. And I looked, he was not wearing a t-shirt. He didn't hold a sign. He just said, please vote for my dad.
How old was this guy?
Like 30 at least. Like a full-grown adult person. And he goes, please, like, I thought maybe if it's a kid, you know what I mean? Like,
Right,
like,
yeah. That'd
please
be
vote for
cute.
daddy. And he had a shirt on that was like,
And he's
my
got a
dad's
reason
name
to
is
not
this.
tell you who his dad is.
Right. But this guy just goes, please vote for my dad. And it was like the saddest sentence I had ever heard because it didn't sound hopeful even a little bit.
Because the world's done if you don't.
Right.
Listen,
And the subtext of the statement was, please vote for my dad. Christmas has been really tough. My children need toys. Please vote for my dad.
We don't get very political on our show. We're never going to tell you who to vote for, except for today.
Don't
Please
vote for that guy.
do your civic duty and vote for that guy's dad. He really
Please vote
needs
for his
it.
dad.
Christmas
Just
is a
vote for
hard
his dad.
time around there.
Please vote for that guy's dad.
I laughed about it all the way to the poll
Oh,
and all the way back to my car.
that's awesome.
Right back past him again.
I love it.
Speaking of fathers, I want to talk about the man who raised me, Sir Ian McKellen, and he's in this
Yeah,
movie.
he is.
And this
What a
movie, of
transition.
course, is called The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers,
or
The Two Philosophers for our friends across the pond.
That's the first time we've ever gotten the joke title right at the same
Oh,
time.
it felt so right. And also, it's good to be back. And also, this movie, of course, is a part of our ongoing series known colloquially and locally as Do You Believe in Magic? Wow, we crush that every single time.
It sounds
feel
the
like
same.
we really
more
nailed it.
than ever, my harmonies were on point.
Yeah,
this
maybe
time.
certainly more than the
Didn't
first.
it sound much better than?
Yeah, you've really. I
Last
could tell
time?
you were practicing the whole time you were in Italy,
Yeah.
standing on one of those boats, pushing it with poles,
Speaking of,
singing.
guys, can we take an aside to talk about that?
Please.
Yeah. Here's the
It's-
deal. We have now transitioned back to the mortal plane of existence.
Right.
We are temporally bound and locked to this time stream again.
Yes.
We can do whatever we want.
It's our podcast. I feel like we can talk about whatever we
Right.
want.
It was weird though to listen to last week's episode, air quotes.
It was like
And
5
it's
weeks
like,
ago.
Carter's in Italy. No, I just got back. And I was like, I did. And I'm like talking to myself. And
Carter, you're
Italy-
so right.
Italy was amazing. It was everything that I had expected.
Did you eat some spaghetti?
I had some
Did
spaghetti.
the moon hit your eye?
The moon hit my eye.
That's
like
amore.
a pizza pie.
Dang.
Guys, it was cool. I walked around places, buildings that were
In Assassin's
completely
Creed?
intact, and I thought about Assassin's Creed the whole time. Venice, RIP, shout out. It's like in 6 feet of water right now.
Wait, for real?
Yes,
Mhm.
super floods out there. But it was interesting when I was reading the article about it. It said it's the biggest flood they've had in 6 years. And I'm like, oh,
Oh,
okay.
Only
So-
6.
right. But that's how Venice is. But there were several times when I'm walking around. Of course, this is a movie podcast,
yeah.
so I can tell you
Sure.
when I'm in Venice, I'm thinking about. For some reason, "Lady and the Tramp" was in my head a lot.
Okay.
This is the night.
Yeah,
It's that song was through my head. The
Did
whole
you
time.
and your wife, Lady and the Tramp, some spaghetti?
We did not.
Feels like a missed opportunity.
Definitely for sure.
I feel like that would be the grossest thing. In the
Imagine,
world.
hey, replace that with a different pasta. Lady and the Tramp, some lasagna.
gross.
Just like
Blah, blah, blah.
Ew, no.
elbow macaroni.
No. Like it's like the shortest song ever.
We're gonna Lady in the Tramp. Can we get some cheese and shells? Please? Some
Just
Velveeta.
only mac and cheese. It's not even really technically Italian. Like even the Italians are like, no, because that's how they talk. No, they really do. I was there, so you can't vouch for that if you haven't been.
Fair enough.
Venice felt like a movie
It's
set.
me.
Venice really felt like a movie set.
Really?
If you were to ever go, I'd say just go and get lost there
Okay.
because it's amazing. It feels like we walked onto a set that had closed
Wow.
because it just did not seem real.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see the Coliseum. I'm obviously
Yeah.
thinking about Russell Crowe the whole time.
Sure.
I was like,
And
that's
were
where
you not
Joaquin's
entertained?
at. You SOB, huh?
Were you not entertained?
I was entertained.
Okay.
I was certainly entertained. But Maximus, check this out.
Mhm.
His helmet was a direct design from an actual gladiator of the time called Maximus.
No way.
Whoa.
That's really cool, actually.
Like they
That's
just
super
straight
cool.
up pulled it from a guy that actually existed.
I just
So-
watched that movie very recently, actually.
Love that movie. But
Great movie.
Italy was amazing. But I am very glad to be back. The three of us were talking about, and I'm sure the listener would love to know how much we love doing what we're doing.
Oh yeah.
We missed this.
Oh,
just
my
being able to
goodness,
do
yeah.
this
So
every
much.
week. Like
Walking
there's this
back-
nostalgic Casa de Chunk
Casa
has
de
a
Chunk.
smell.
It does have a
It
smell,
really
doesn't
does.
it? We're thinking about candling that smell since we record at Wax Space. We're
Yes,
thinking
please.
about talking about 2 chunks and some wax, or 2
Yeah.
chunks of some
2
wax.
chunks of wax.
2 chunks
Yeah.
of wax. That'll work.
If there's any candle makers out there, hit us up because we got a stink you wouldn't believe.
Oh, you're gonna love this. You're gonna love this stink. I guarantee it.
Oh.
Hey,
Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's stink. If you can't tell, we are
wow.
so excited to be recording again.
We are. We only have 10 minutes left. So I'm going to buy the No.
But speaking of, I think it
Please.
is in fact time
Let's do it.
for Doge to drop a dime on
Yep.
the pantomime
Oh.
that's known throughout the time. That's 2 times. As this movie. Doge, would you tell us about this, please?
The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, is the second part of a 3-part story chronicling Frodo's journey to the volcano,
Azkaban.
Mount Doom, Frodo's journey to Azkaban, to destroy the One Ring of Power.
Yep.
I'm not going to get super detailed. In this one, we see some Ents. In this one, we go to Helm's Deep. We save the Kingdom of Rohan. We see the Dead Marshes. There's a whole lot of stuff that happens in this one. And it would kind of be an exercise in futility to try and describe it all in a
Oh
few
my
sentences.
goodness, yes.
So let's just go ahead and start talking
When
about
have
this
we
movie.
ever shied away from an exercise in futility?
That's the official subtitle of our podcast.
Exercise in futility. That's good. Anytime I exercise, it's an exercise in
Good.
futility. Yeah.
Wow,
okay.
that
Excellent.
was
So,
good.
just wanted to-
Do we want to do some trivia beforehand?
Ooh, Carter. I'm so glad you brought this
I'm
up.
only saying this because I'm behind.
Yeah,
and
how
the
much are you
competitive-
behind by?
I think is it still 1 or did I lose in Order of the Phoenix?
I think you.
Is it 4-2?
I think it's 4-2.
It
Okay.
definitely is 4-2.
So
I'm up by
you got
2.
some catching up to do.
Really, there's not much space left. Can y'all believe we're more than halfway through this series?
That's insane.
Like, there's only 1 more Lord of the Rings movie and 2 more Harry Potter movies. There's only
Well,
3 more
technically
episodes.
more Harry Potter movies.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're
2 more
combining,
episodes
yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'll say is welcome to I Am Doo-Doo Trivia, the part of the show where I read 2 pieces of trivia, 1 true, 1 false, and it is up to my co-hosts to decide which is which.
What a very good and clean transition into this.
Yeah,
bit.
it felt good. So I will caution you for the first time ever. This one comes with an asterisk. Really think about this one.
He's getting in our heads.
This one's
We're not
tough.
falling for this.
Excellent.
I'm just going to throw that out there. Here are the 2 pieces of trivia. Number 1, all 3 movies were shot simultaneously. And there's trivia 1. Trivia 2. Andy Serkis would eat only Swedish fish every day on set in order to get into the mindset of the character Gollum.
Okay.
Again, I caution.
Man.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Which
Are
one
your
is
votes
made up?
ready?
Okay.
Yep.
I will count down 3, 2, 1, go. You will say it. 3, 2, 1, go.
2.
The made up trivia and correct answer is trivia number 2.
Yes, here I come.
So somebody actually wrote down all 3 movies were shot simultaneously, as though that's not common knowledge.
Yeah. So, in my defense, it does seem perfectly logical for Andy Serkis to eat only Swedish fish while he's on set.
Feels
I
like
feel
a real Andy Serkis
I feel
move.
like Andy
huh?
Serkis is very nearly at that kind of like Nick Cage, John Travolta, where it's like he only eats worms. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I honestly believe that.
Yeah. I saw an interesting stat on Nick Cage. How it's basically it's saying how he just he gets in debt, so he just does any movie that someone comes to him.
I fully buy
It's
that.
like they have every director or producer has in their back pocket a Nick Cage card.
Yeah.
And they're
Just
like,
in case.
at least he'll do it. But his like Rotten Tomatoes average is all over the place because he has some of the highest rated movies ever and some of the
lowest.
worst. Like,
Can we
made
actually
for
talk
Netflix
about how
movies.
weird it is that Nick Cage's best movies, or some of his best movies, are the National Treasure series?
Like, I was even saying like critically acclaimed movies, but
Right.
yes,
Can we talk
National
about how weird
Treasure.
that is, though?
I don't know how he gets to be
Like
a
some of his
hero and it works.
some of his
sometimes.
best movies are a worse version of the Uncharted video game series.
Good point.
That's so weird. But I like them.
Speaking of Nick Cage, though, he's not in the Two Towers.
But you know who is? My ideal father figure, Sir Ian
Sir
McKellen.
Ian McKellen.
And this movie opens.
You said let's dive into the movie, and that's when I thought you were making like a
Oh,
cute analogy
that's
to
good.
the legitimate dive. Can I tell you? Okay, I'm just gonna say it from the start. The Two Towers is my second favorite movie of all time.
Whoa.
Okay. And in the spooky theme of Halloween, number one for me is Silence of the Lambs, because I do legitimately feel from a movie
Sure.
making
It's
standpoint,
perfect.
it's perfect.
Yeah. I
It
agree.
won
Yeah.
every big Oscar by a long shot, and you should see its competitors. Any other year those competitors would have existed, they would have won. But something happened. But anyways, how rare is it for the middle of a trilogy to be done so well?
Yeah.
Sometimes the middle of a trilogy feels like just a connector.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
just, I'm just there to not really give too much substance.
Looking at you, Thor: The Dark World.
Right. And
Looking
I'm
at
just
you,
carrying
Avengers:
things
Age of
along.
Ultron.
But Peter Jackson, what happened to him in The Hobbit is just so erased for me because of
inspiring. Yeah.
how wonderfully beautiful his approach was to these three movies. To start it with Gandalf. Guys, it was almost my super pump.
Same.
The scene where they're so far off and it just looks like a comet in this massive cave
Yes.
of him fighting the Balrog.
That is one of my favorite shots in any movie. Like when it's just
Yes.
that wide shot of the cave and them slowly falling down the center of the frame.
How brilliant.
Gorgeous.
Do you guys ever do the thing where you're watching something with somebody who's never seen it before, and they have
Were you still watching
yeah,
it? Okay.
all of these, and they have a reaction, and it's just like a delicious meal to
Right.
you.
You don't
Yep.
want to see them
Yep.
catching you, like looking at them the whole
Right.
time.
And
Because
they-
I would get frustrated if someone was doing
You
that to me.
hear them be like, oh, and you're like, that's what you're supposed to say right now. Like that's how I was this whole movie,
Awesome.
particularly openings, because I confessed that I let them sit in the fear that Gandalf was dead.
Right.
Yes.
And then when this movie opens up, I heard them go, and I was just like, oh, it's a feast. It's a feast of
Yes.
emotion.
This was such a significant frame, like
Yes.
such a significant theme to me of when I realized that directors are artists too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
wow.
what Peter
Yeah.
Jackson had done was taken something that we were aware of in the book and did it in a creative way
Yeah.
that
Maybe surprised even
this
people
is what
that
the
knew.
platform of cinema was made for.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's make
And
stories visually beautiful.
Right. And sometimes if you're watching a movie, you can get to the point as a critique that you're saying you're taking advantage of what movies are. Have you ever felt that before?
Mhm.
Someone's just like, I can just do this because you're visually, like you're seeing something. I'm going to just
Right.
shock you. People do it well. Tarantino does it well.
Yeah.
Like the Coen brothers do it well.
You're saying the excuse of like a pretty shot to fill time, basically.
Right,
Of
to
like,
fill
well, at least
time.
it's pretty looking.
Yes. But then sometimes it becomes art.
Yeah.
And that's what happened right here.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
an artist. And that's why it's a part of the fine arts is cinema. And so I thought it was amazing.
No,
It's
I
interesting
agree
the
with you.
distinction between stuff like that, though, because we have gorgeous shots like this, and then we have things even in like Batman versus Superman, where we would honestly say some of these shots are absolutely
Oh,
beautiful.
for sure. That's what
But-
they were hanging their hat on.
But how, like, that's the thing. Like, I don't think that can ever be the main thing.
Sure. Well, and
Right.
I think
Right.
your comparison to the Coen brothers is perfect. Because the Coen brothers, every movie I've ever seen of theirs, they don't waste a shot.
No, you don't
No.
like True Grit,
If
though.
something's happening. Yeah, I don't really like True Grit, but
Man, that's a good
is
one.
that Coen brothers?
Yeah, it is.
Is it really?
Yeah, the
And
Jeff Bridges one.
I bring them up because the Coen brothers in their script, they're my favorite directors.
Uh.
In their scripts, they always want to do at least one thing that is very disturbing. So, for instance, in Fargo, when you've got like a wood chipper
Right.
with a human,
Yeah.
in it,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things from No Country for Old Men that are just like
Oh,
when
my
he uses
goodness.
the cattle prod.
Yeah.
That's such a
to
good movie.
just eliminate people, but they do that throughout, and they're doing that not just to be crazy. It's not a
Right.
Halloween themed TBS is doing all these horror movies.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just
It's
to,
not The
it's
Walking
not
Dead.
Saw. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not The Walking Dead.
And I think that in the first minutes of this movie, Peter Jackson establishes that he's willing to do something outlandish
yeah.
right from the start.
Well, and don't you just see his love and respect for the
Yeah.
series? Like,
Well,
Yeah.
and even more than that, I feel like the first 6 minutes of this movie is a love song to the character Gandalf.
oh my God.
I feel like the first 6 minutes of this movie
Yeah.
is here's your time to shine, buddy.
It's so interesting. The Academy. So the Academy is just this collection of, it's like everybody in cinema, right? It's like actors are
Mhm.
in the Academy, all these things. I think everybody knew after Two Towers, you know what? We're just going to give them everything for Return of the King because that feels more fair.
Yeah.
Sure.
And this one, they won 2 Oscars for this one and nominated for like 4 or 5. And the 2 that they won were like sound editing and film editing.
Right.
But this is such a good series that they put so many good actors together, and it doesn't always happen, that they just said, either we make the entire nomination everybody from this movie,
Yeah.
or we just don't nominate any of them at all.
Yeah.
Like I said before, Ian McKellen is the only nomination the whole series, and it was for Fellowship.
Wow.
And so it's just because the ensemble just took
How
it
do you
over.
pick? Kind of a thing.
I don't know how
Yeah.
you pick, but
That's
yes,
fair enough.
to me, this movie is very much about Gandalf,
Yeah.
and I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Well, and it opens on such a strong note,
oh yeah,
and it has big shoes to fill, shoes that it made itself, which
Yeah.
is weird. You know, I feel like a lot of times movies don't start with something so fantastic.
So speaking of shoes to fill, this is something interesting that I noticed while I was watching. Do you guys feel like there is a little bit of a tonal shift in this one? And it necessarily gets darker because it's the middle part of a trilogy.
right.
I think
Um,
so.
But the light, humorous moments, it feels like they got punched up a little bit more. Like Gimli is a little sillier in this one
Yeah.
than he was in the Fellowship. And I
there's
don't have a
some
problem
borderline
with
Magoo,
that.
actually.
Yeah,
And-
that's
and
kind of what I'm noticing.
Part of me,
Yeah.
part of me can't tell if it is punched up or if it's so much more obvious against the black background.
Yeah.
You know what
And
I mean?
I
Yeah.
almost feel like on this end of things, we start to recognize it wasn't necessary. But do you feel like it was just moves made by production to be like, I think people will not necessarily enjoy that the Fellowship has broke up. So how can we make things lighter?
Hey, I
It's-
fully acknowledge here that I'm biased completely. It works for me.
It
Yeah.
doesn't bother me, but I'm wondering, and maybe it's just because I know what Warner Brothers is like now, but I'm wondering if there was any element of like, hey, like we know the first one was really good, but like you got to punch up some of the humor in this, so people like we got to sell this to 13-year-olds. You know,
Yeah.
I could see that potentially, but Marvel hadn't taken over the universe yet, and
yeah. So not
there was
everything
not
was
that pressure.
an action comedy.
Because Marvel has put that pressure on, whether or not they meant to. They have put pressure on people to make movies funny, even
Yeah.
when they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Marvel does a good job of it. It has been proven that others do not.
Yeah.
I don't think that pressure was there yet, and so I think that. And maybe that's why it still holds up okay. I mean, there were parts I definitely rolled my eyes.
Am I making that up that this is Warner Brothers? Because the opening credits only say New Line Cinema.
I
They
think
don't
it's
say
just
Warner
New
Brothers.
Line Cinema. I don't know if it's Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers got a hold of The Hobbit, maybe.
Yeah, I think Warner
Okay.
Brothers was maybe just The Hobbit.
Gotcha.
I can
Okay.
look that up right now though.
Yeah, we have the technology.
Yeah.
Not trying to brag or
But
anything.
I feel like the humor in this works because it was not shoehorned.
it does work. It works because it comes from character. It's not like
right.
it's not making fun of itself. Like Gimli's not saying like, oh, and I'm only using an axe. I'm just so little. Like it
Yes.
it arises
And
from
Right.
actual
the
characters
thing
rubbing
about
against
Gimli,
each other.
Gimli's jokes are not out of character either, in the sense of like Gimli's not making fart jokes.
Yeah.
Gimli's making jokes about his dwarven pride.
Yeah.
That's where his jokes come
It makes
from.
total sense.
And so in context, you go, seems like a weird time to make a joke, but also he's with his boys doing the thing he loves best, which is
Yeah.
cracking orc skulls.
Yeah.
So maybe that is exactly what would be happening.
And the relationship between he and Legolas is
Oh my goodness.
something
I love
that's so a movie that I saw recently that does this on a more applicable scale
Yeah.
for us is did you see Black Klansman?
No, not
Oh,
yet.
I want to so
So
badly.
you've got this it's based on a true story. So you've got this African American man who is joining the Colorado Springs Police Department and essentially going undercover. His buddy, played by Adam Driver, who
Big fan.
I love so
one
much.
of my favorite young actors right now,
Yeah.
if not my favorite. But anyways, it's this two relationship in a time where there was a lot of prejudice against each other.
Yeah.
And that's what this reminds me of. And it's interesting to be able to do something with such depth in a world of fantasy.
Like an
Yeah.
uneasy partnership
Right, because
kind of a thing. Yeah.
dwarves and elves are the number one thing, not just in Lord of the Rings, that is like they're so different. It doesn't make sense they don't like each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think they pull that off really well. And that's probably where the most humor for me came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, I don't know, how do we make it look more like a friendship between bros? I mean, I'm not saying they're trying to be like, dude, bro.
No. I think the thing that I love about it, though, to jump ahead and spoil part of the end of this movie during the Battle of Helm's Deep, when Gimli talks about, I cannot jump the distance, you'll have to toss me. Carter,
Yep.
would you do us the honors?
Like saying it like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Oh no, they got the Prancher. I cannot travel the distance. You'll have to toss
That's
me.
perfect.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good one.
Little Italian. Maybe it hung
It's
over
because
a
I've
little
been.
bit.
You're gonna have to toss to me.
It's me, a Gimli.
And then he gets tossed and he goes, what?
Woo!
Waha!
So even in that moment, Gimli manages to make it clear that it's about Legolas.
Yeah.
Don't tell the elf.
Yes.
Yeah, I
And-
love that.
And I think that something that I love about their friendship and their dynamic is, even though, like you were saying, that it's uneasy
Mhm.
and it's because of mutual disdain, they still are able to form a real friendship that is more lighthearted than heavy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think in the midst of everything that happens in this movie, I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, totally.
Because this movie is at times very heavy. And I think that I appreciate jumping back to the big three, quote unquote, and watching them just hurt some people and make jokes.
Yeah. And is that where we want to start? Like where they first begin?
Yeah,
Or
looking for
because again,
the
it is
little boys.
because of the way Tolkien splits up the fellowship. I don't even really think the book is interesting. Like
Mhm.
to read the book, he also splits it in sections
Yeah.
to go through all of
Right.
that. And so that made it probably really fun for just storyboarding. For
Makes
the
it
movie.
very difficult to talk about on a podcast.
It
setting.
really does.
So,
yeah.
but let me ask you this: if you had to pick one trilogy to follow one group of people to follow for the entirety of this movie and not watch the other parts, would it be the big three, the two little boys, or the two little boys with the scary boy?
Frodo, Sam, Smeagol for me.
The same.
Where
Yeah.
does Gandalf fall though in that?
He kind of jumps around between the three boys and the two little
Is
boys.
he
huh?
with Aragorn in Rohan when
Yes.
he goes to Rohan?
Yes.
Eventually?
Because
Yeah.
they find him in Fanghorn.
Yep.
Dude, I don't know.
I know.
I
Okay,
don't know if
so
I
let's
can
talk
make this
about let's talk about Frodo, Sam, Smeagol, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about their whole journey. So they hit.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Gollum. He's my super pump for this movie, friends.
Really? Okay.
I am shocked at myself. I'm also shocked about my super dump, and we'll get there.
Okay.
But I thought in a movie with so many awesome things going on that it would be hard to pick. Andy Serkis
Yes.
knocks it right out of the park in this movie.
So this is 2002, correct? This means that this is 3 years after Jar Jar Binks.
right.
In terms of like CG
Right.
That's
supporting
not
characters.
Right.
I'm not talking about writing.
No, I get you. It's like, wow.
I'm talking
okay.
about visually.
Right.
Compare how alive
I
Gollum
mean, I
feels.
remember I've been infatuated with award shows, especially the Oscars, since I was a kid.
Sure.
Because I was like, I love competition. I love trying to make picks and decide who wins. But I remember people just saying, like, we need to make a new category. Because where do we put this?
Right.
Can we give him an acting award? Well, I don't know. What is it? It's not technically. Is it acting? So he did this thing that it's not just what prosthetic makeup does anymore. It's
beyond.
We made it media.
Digital
and it's like,
prosthesis.
I don't know what. Yes, that's such a good way to put
Band
it.
name also.
And, yeah. But Gollum, he looks good. He sounds good. He's written well. He is both heartbreaking and terrifying.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. Exactly what.
Yeah.
And I had, I watched with my wife and these two people that had never seen it before.
Right.
And at the end, they were both going, I just feel so bad for Gollum.
Because you're supposed to feel how Frodo feels for him.
Right.
And that's exactly how he feels.
Right.
For him.
But yet they're saying, I just feel so bad for Gollum.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking, oh, but just wait though.
Pump to the Hobbit series. We don't do this ever, but pump to the Hobbit series for giving us the time that Bilbo had to decide whether or not to just slit his throat.
Yeah.
As morbid as that seems,
Could have ended it all.
but he felt sorry for this guy.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that Gandalf alludes to a lot too.
Sure. And I think that's sort of the magic of Gollum is he is such a detestable character, but yet at the same time you watch and listen and you go, oh,
Yeah.
this poor
Dude,
guy.
it's heartbreaking whenever Frodo says, "You were a creature not so very different from a hobbit once." Smeagol, that was your name. And Gollum remembers his
what
name.
did you say?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then we have the whole interplay between
we
him
start-
and his
Yeah.
other
We
personality.
start next movie with the flashback, right? To him
Yes.
and Deagle.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay.
Obviously, that's on another level.
Yeah.
It's on its own level.
Um,
The whole Smeagol interaction.
Enormous pump for me, not my super pump, enormous pump for me to the scene, really any scene in which Smeagol and Gollum have a conversation.
Yeah.
The way that those are framed and we shoot it like it's a conversation
And he
between two
looks
people and he looks different.
Ugh.
Like the fact, even if Andy Serkis was actually physically on screen, still amazing that he can portray two different characters that way. So remove him out of the equation and we now have this digital creation that he's puppeting.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really
I agree.
is. Yeah, I remember anytime I would get so excited and terrified watching this in theaters of any time Smeagol starts to get time to himself because I
Yeah.
realize the conversation's about to happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's actually, I mean, he's supposed to be scary. And so seeing it, 2 stories tall was just kind of like, oh my God. And I remember too, like my super dump for Fellowship, I'm just waiting for somebody to turn Smeagol face. And I was
Yeah.
just going to pee my pants again. So I'm like, please don't do this anymore. But yeah, just to see the immense fury that he has and
Yeah.
the strength from his small frame that he can.
Yeah.
And it's good to have him with the hobbits. I mean, if he was hanging out with Gimli and Aragorn,
Yeah.
we wouldn't
that'd
be
very
really
different.
afraid that he could kill somebody.
Yeah,
And
I
so
agree
it's
with you.
it's
Yeah.
it's really well.
It makes them feel more vulnerable and him feel like a bigger threat. I
Right.
completely agree. And
So-
and I love if we're gonna stick with sort of storyline by storyline. Then
Yeah, I
what
think
I
that's
want to
probably the
talk
best
about
way.
is, I mean, we go to the what is it? Not the Dead Swamps. What is it?
The Dead Marshes.
Dead Marshes. Yeah, we go to the Dead Marshes, and that's deeply frightening.
Yeah, very
to me.
scary.
There's a lot of stuff that happens there, but ultimately, what this storyline serves the purpose of is starting the wedge
Yeah.
between Frodo and Sam.
Yeah.
Gollum sees
Which
an
is-
opportunity to hurt and
Yeah.
to separate, and that begins here. And we get a lot of the payoff for that coming here very soon.
Yep.
Starting next movie with where we kind of leave Frodo, Sam, and Gollum, which is he's
Mhm.
taking them to her,
Yep.
which is so ominous.
This is something, if we want to reference Harry Potter,
Yeah.
that would have added a wonderful layer, and they tried to do it, but I think it was almost a super dump for
Talking
some
about
of
in
us.
Goblet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Between Ron and Harry.
Yeah.
So anytime you have and honestly, any best bros or best friends, like one of the climaxes or one of the just ethereal antagonists is are they
Mhm.
going to stay together?
Yeah,
Right.
That's a story
Yeah.
you have to do.
You have to do that. And it's everywhere. I mean, that's Civil War. That's Captain America Civil War.
And I think it's
We've
because
got two
people
different
can
opinions.
always relate to a wedge being driven into friendship.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so
That's a huge bummer for our very silly podcast.
oh.
I'm all out of love. I'm so lost without you. That's all we can sing.
Yeah. Before we have to pay up those
Yeah.
copyright lawyers.
Before-
And Smeagol does a great job of delivering
Oh my goodness.
pretty much a cliffhanger for what's going to happen next. Because the very
Yes.
last scene is him basically saying she could do it.
Yeah.
So the last thing that we've got to talk about with Frodo and Sam's story, I think, before we can kind of leave them is
Potatoes?
is
Why
potatoes.
doesn't
Is-
Gollum know what potatoes are?
That's weird.
Isn't that
he didn't
weird?
know his own name. So I
Yeah.
think it
No,
might
that's a
be
great
playing on
point.
the fact that he's just been
He's
so
just
lost
forgotten.
in his infatuation with the ring.
He's got to eat though, right? I mean, is it
I mean, he
just
eats
raw
ra-
fish?
I
Is it
I think
he
so.
loves
just
some
raw
rabbitses
fish?
though.
dude.
Okay,
Yeah,
he
that's
does
true.
eat some rabbitses.
We need to talk about Faramir. We need to talk
Yeah, we
about
do.
Osgiliath and the Ringwraith riding his dragon.
Mhm. His fell beast.
Nazgul.
Yeah. What did you guys think about Faramir?
I love Faramir as a character. I don't super love that he falls prey to the ring like Boromir did. I wish that he had been, because I mean, ultimately, it's a roundabout way of getting to like he
Yeah.
does not fall for the ring, and so
Yeah.
I wish that we had just gone straight there.
That's kind of where I'm getting. Faramir is not my super dump, but I will go ahead and super dump right now on the pacing and length of this movie.
Okay,
It's right about 3 hours long, which is a fine length for a big epic series.
259. I think it's it's almost
but you have to really settle on what you want your approach to making a movie of a book to be.
yeah,
Like, is this a scene by scene? Like, are we using the book as our script, or are we saying this is the story that the book is telling? How do we tell that in a movie?
right.
And I think Faramir is somebody that we do a fine job by the book. You know what I mean? Like we tell the ins and outs of his story and his interaction with our main characters.
But he does not give
according to
into
the
the ring
book.
in the book.
Right. I think in the movie we could have streamlined their whole interaction
Sure.
with Faramir. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to.
So you're not saying you don't like Faramir?
I'm not saying I don't like
Okay,
Faramir.
I'm
I'm
with you.
saying I think we kind of lose a lot of time. Like, will he? Won't he? Will
Yeah.
he let them go? Won't he let them go?
I will
we kind
say,
of like lose a lot of time.
I do love the payoff of I'll take my licks to let them go.
Yeah,
I do love that payoff.
I love that. I don't think we need to spend as much time with him. Like, I think we could.
There's a shorter walk. There.
And
There's some
what's-
fat there that we can trim.
Yeah.
What's
yeah.
unique about that too is we
100%.
can't really credit it to like Sean Bean did so well. We have to do something to make people think of Boromir, which was a lot of people's favorite part
Sure.
of the first movie because they were all filmed at the same time. And so, yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I don't think I ever noticed it, but
Pumped to how similar they were able to make Faramir and
Yeah,
Boromir
for
look.
I
real.
think those guys just naturally.
I think
look
that's what
alike.
it is. But
Yeah.
I mean, like, good eye. You know what I mean?
I think they did.
It was
a
great
job with that.
casting, and that's the tricky thing. I mean, it's Carter already said this is his second favorite movie of all time. Like, this is an incredible movie.
Oh, yes.
It's hard to find a super dump, but
Oh, I found one.
yeah, I will say, like, that pacing, that kind of just back and forth,
No,
felt
I get
weird
that.
to me with
I
Faramir.
absolutely get that. So
So is that the end of our talking about the Hobbit storyline on their
I
side?
think we can.
think so.
I will continue to say, and my own conviction that Elijah Wood does a heck of a job.
Oh my goodness
Truly.
gracious!
I remember being irritated at one point, and that could have been the amount of testosterone in my body at the time that was starting to boil up and in my preteen years of just being like, oh, what a wuss. But
Right.
he really didn't do it to death like I thought he did.
No.
I think he did a great job.
And I physically cannot let you talk about Elijah Wood without saying that Sean Astin also kicks some ass in this movie.
Yeah, no, and that's totally fine. I think, yes, and that was always without doubt. Sam was always one of my favorite performances.
Yeah.
But I think he does enough of what we say Martin Freeman does in terms of the acting without words that he has to do in terms of the pull of the ring on him, and that's
Right.
probably not easy.
So while we're talking about Elijah Wood's performance, I do want to give a quick mid-show shout out Since we've been disconnected from your time stream, we haven't been able to do a lot of these movie specific ones. We did get an email from someone. This is not a joke. Only identifying themselves as Daddy Swag,
What?
who's super pumped for Fellowship was Elijah Wood's award-winning tear-jerking performance when Gandalf fell.
Yeah.
The no that he screams there just goes to further what you're saying, Carter. Like Elijah Wood, I feel like I've never given him enough credit for what he's able to do with this character in this role.
No, completely agreed.
Very good.
Let's talk about our other two little boys.
Yeah. There's not a lot to talk about. With
There
them.
not but I love Treebeard.
I love all of the ints. So Treebeard, I have always not been able to tell what kind of effect is used.
It's physical.
Combination of animatronic and CG.
Yeah.
Like his eyes are CG, but
He's a 14-foot puppet.
Unbelievable.
I know.
Unbelievable. Looks completely real at all times.
It's so
The
good.
only bad effect is anytime we look at Merry and Pippin being carried by him,
Yeah.
the movement is
Doesn't
clearly
quite
green
track.
screen.
Yeah,
Yep.
that had to be tough,
Mhm.
even now.
But Treebeard himself. So I am going to dump on the clear use of green screen, but I'm going to.
Yeah.
I have to.
Okay. Yeah.
For consistency's sake, I have to. If I'm going to fault another movie for it, I have to fault this one
That's
for
fair
it.
enough. Yep.
However, I'm going to pump on just how good Treebeard looked and John Rhys Davies
Yeah.
again with the voice.
Yeah,
Yep.
way to go,
Gimli.
man.
Gimli's voice is Treebeard. So fantastic.
I hope he got paid double time.
I doubt it.
Probably not. I think to just the meeting of the ints.
The ints are so cool.
To
I wish
have
we
that-
could have spent more time with it. Like in the books, we get the whole story of the int wives have left, and so the ints are dying.
Right.
Right.
I wish we could have spent more time, but at the same time, my super dump was the pacing. So I don't
Yeah.
think I can actually wish
right.
that.
Anybody else laugh big long time at the int who's on fire and just dives headfirst
Yes,
into the
I've
water?
always thought
Yeah.
that's hilarious.
I love it. I mean, I love it because it's details, but I also love it because it's so funny. But I also just want to say, Merry and Pippin are so much fun to watch all the time for me.
I love them a whole lot with my whole entire heart.
And I think Merry is it Pippin that gives the stand and deliver moment in this movie with Treebeard when he's like, he gives the speech of like, you can't let us.
I think that's Mary.
Is that Merry?
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So much fun. So engaging. I love it.
It was. I wonder which Hobbit relationship related to more viewers.
Oh, you mean
Because
Merry
the
and Pippin
Sam
versus,
Frodo
yeah.
thing has got some depth that might not happen as often as the Merry Pippin thing does.
Yeah.
Between cousins or between just friends and things like
Sure.
that too. And I can't remember, because correct me if I'm wrong. I don't really think Frodo and Sam ever break up.
Briefly. Oh, you mean two different locations?
Yeah.
Not really.
No.
Sam stops on the mountain and walks down the path for like 6 minutes at one point next
Yeah.
movie, and then turns around and runs back.
Right.
Yeah.
But so this is a good opportunity. I was sent an article by Jordan Green on Twitter.
Okay.
And I want to get up on my pedestal for 2 seconds,
Mhm.
my soapbox. I think the thing I love about Sam and Frodo, and I'm actually glad you brought this up because it reminded me.
You're welcome.
Sam and Frodo provided a fantasy, quote unquote, manly, masculine, cool outlet for a very vulnerable and open man-to-man friendship
Yeah.
that I think was unique in film at the time and unique in life even still.
Yeah.
I think it's still unique in film.
And what I agree.
You know?
And I think one of the things that stuck out to me the most, so and both of you will get this because we were friends in college. One of the most unique things that I am the most thankful for about my time in college was that I made friends with guys who were okay with talking about emotions and frustrations and real things.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to go, well, those are the boys I talk about the sports games with, but I
Right,
have to
yeah,
go
sure.
find some other people. Like with my best friends and with my roommates, and I was able to talk about how I felt, what was hurting, what I was frustrated with, what I was hopeful for,
Right.
and make stupid jokes.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's maybe more rare than I ever acknowledged.
Right.
And in Sam and Frodo, I think we get that. We get this, there are tons of articles about the nature of Sam and Frodo's relationship. And to me, what it just looks like is two guys who deeply love and care about each other,
Yeah.
who are willing to support and push each other past boundaries that they thought they could get through.
Yeah.
And like maybe that's why I find every single second of their story so compelling.
Yeah.
Is because I look at that and I'm like, that is how dudes need to be with each other.
Yeah.
And so again, that's my soapbox about male friendships, but I feel like it's important in this movie specifically
Yeah.
because of what it sets up for the next movie.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times, I think it's fun, and I would encourage listeners to do this if you don't already, especially if you've got someone who has authored something or written something specifically, whatever the source material is. Try and think of what their inspiration might have been. And
Yeah.
if you have fun looking at their background and saying, you know what, I bet it was this.
Yeah.
For me, the Sam Frodo relationship, essentially not necessarily going to war, but going to the very depths of Mount Doom, was a reflection of Tolkien's time in the military in World War I.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because then he's got, obviously all that's around him is men. And it's just
Right.
these guys that he's saying, I know this is necessary. I can't always say that I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing in my life, but I'm here.
Sure.
And here's what's developed from it. And so, yeah, I think that's really cool. He was also actually in one of the bloodiest battles for the
Mm.
British military in World War I. And so, yeah, I think a lot of his writing was inspired by that. And I
Yeah.
think even though it's not the actual Helm's Deep or the battle at Minas Tirith later, that a lot of that war-related material might come from just the relationship between Sam and Frodo,
Certainly.
which is just really, really, really cool.
I agree.
So,
Yeah. Sorry for taking up time. That was just, I felt like it was important to say.
no, and I think that's
Yeah.
fine too in this trilogy. I've been thinking about that because of how concentrated and most people are going to have seen this.
Yeah.
I think when we kind of venture off and just talk a little bit about like the influence it has on us, different perspectives we have on it, I think that's totally fine.
And also,
Instead of
as we
just
said
going through
earlier, it's our podcast. We can do whatever we
Yeah, we do
want.
That's actually
whatever.
the most important
that.
point.
We do whatever we want.
So we done with Merry and Pippin? Can we talk
Yeah,
about the big three?
Carter
Well-
said the H word and it reminded me of Helm's Deep. So
Yeah.
Yes, I do want to say about Merry and Pippin though,
Please.
that one of my favorite scenes, we start to kind of see that there's this prejudice between Uruk-hai and Orc.
Yeah.
Right? Like the Uruk-hai
I
are
love that.
calling the shots, and we've got the Orc, and it's like, what about their legs? They don't need those. You know, those scenes and stuff about talking about what are we going to do as soon as we've captured them.
Right.
okay, speaking of that scene, this is a fun fact for me. One of the Uruk-hai says uses the British word bloomin', as like kind of like a curse or
Like a
filler-
bloomin' onion.
like
Right.
a filler curse.
from the Outback steak.
My story relates to the offense of that word. In middle school, we were in like an English class, I think, or like a reading class or something.
Right.
And they were like, okay, we're reading this like old English book. Everybody write a script. And so I wrote a script for our group, and we had to like do like a little play. And I used the word bloomin' in our script, which to my knowledge is not an offensive word to virtually anybody on this entire planet. A girl in my group lost her absolute mind at me. Very, very angry.
How old were you?
We were like 13.
Wow.
And she goes, Justin. And yet my first name is Justin. She goes, Justin.
It is?
Justin, that is a swear word. We are at school. We cannot say this script. And I was like, I don't think it's a problem. And she was like, I will not read this script in front of our class. I was like, all right, you do what you want to do.
Imagine-
I won't.
Imagine being us, American boys with American boy accents, and just being like, bloomin' dang.
Bloomin' dang.
Where's the bloomin' bathroom in here?
So let's go ahead and talk about the next bloomin' part of this bloomin' movie.
Hey,
And that's
Which is
what-
relax.
our big bloomin' 3.
We're a
what,
family.
what made me
friendly
think of
podcast.
the discrimination between Uruk-hai and Orc in that moment is that's where the hobbits drop one of their wee belts, which is
Not
where
only
which
the
is
lives of
where
our
basically
Florian
this threesome starts.
Sure.
I could. We talked about it in Fellowship. I could watch them kill orcs for
All day.
Yep.
If
eternity.
there was a movie called The Lord of the Rings, The Big Three Smash Orc
Yeah,
Skull.
dude.
I mean, in.
That would make $500 million.
Easy. Easy.
It was so fun. But
so they track them. I think the most significant thing that happens early in their story is when they're surrounded by the Rohirrim, right? Because that's our first introduction to Rohan.
and that's before they go into Fanghorn.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Can we talk about Eomer?
Yes.
Carl Urban.
Yeah.
I love Carl Urban.
So good.
It was one of those. I think my first super impressed of Carl Urban was Star Trek.
Okay.
When he's playing Bones.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's
and,
great.
I was like, let me go back because it feels like this guy is good. He's actually a great character
Yeah.
actor.
Yes.
And he doesn't really
fantastic.
have the makeup of a character actor. Gary Oldman feels like a good character actor because it's like average looking bloke who could just be whatever he wants to be. But Carl Urban is actually this more of like, you feel like would be kind of a Henry Cavill kind of type dude.
Yeah.
But he decides to character act, and I much respect for him. He does a great job.
He does.
For the
I
He
just
really
want to
does.
take a minute to pump. His performance as Bones is one of the most like incredible like emulations of another performance.
Hey,
really, anyway,
is.
That's
sorry.
a different Blue
We're not
Man
talking
movie.
about this. Let's talk about the
Do you
two
believe
Bloomin'
in
Towers.
light speed? So, anyways, but no, I love the Rohirrim. I love them getting surrounded by that.
Yes.
Man, almost super pumped to just New Zealand. Way to have the best
Yeah,
like areas for every single.
New Zealand, if you're listening, good job.
Yeah. Hey, New Zealand, crushed it.
Good job on
Appreciate
geography.
you.
Bloomin' great
NZ.
job.
But
Now
no,
Georgia's
that's
middle school
great.
can't
And
listen to
at
this.
this point, do they take? No, they don't take them to Rohan at this point.
Not
No,
yet.
they point them
Okay.
to Fanghorn. They
Yeah.
point them to the pile of burning
That
bodies.
is right
and then
because they just came in a
track
clean
them
shot.
to Fanghorn. Yeah.
Yes.
But I want to, if we're going to kind of jump around and respect our
Jump.
listeners' time, I do want to jump to Rohan a little bit.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to talk about is this is not my super dump. It was actually close. Not a fan of the love triangle here. Aragorn, Eowyn, Arwen.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels reductive. We don't need that.
I'm okay with Eowyn falling for Aragorn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with Aragorn struggling between Eowyn and Arwen.
Yeah. I think what we don't need
Do you
Aragorn.
feel like he ever struggled though?
Yeah, a little bit. That's how it appeared to me, certainly.
I think we're certainly led to believe that. I think I don't know how you communicate this visually though. Like if he sees her and that reminds him of Arwen and he just feels the pain of
Like a
not,
longing for
not being
Arwen.
able to
Yeah.
be with Arwen.
Yeah.
But that never manifests itself actually as like feelings toward
Don't get me
Eowyn.
wrong. I'm glad that he eventually shuts it down.
Yeah.
That makes me happy. But there were just times where I was like, I just don't feel like it would even have gone this far.
I actually don't care for the character of Eowyn that much.
Oh, I do.
At all. In this one, she feels like she's introduced and then reduced to a prize for Wormtongue, and then she meets Aragorn and falls completely in love with him.
I mean, I would too.
And doesn't. Well, I mean, I would too, but at the same time, like that's not a well-rounded character.
No, I agree. But this movie sets up her domino to be knocked over in the following movie,
Yeah.
and I think it does a decent job of setting her up.
Okay,
my
that's fair.
my only dump is the love triangle. I just don't
Okay.
love it.
Okay.
I'm personally not a huge fan of love triangles in the first place. It feels
Yeah,
contrived.
they're frustrating. So let's talk about Rohan then, because we're already
Yeah.
there, and we can talk about Rohan and then bring our big three there. So, Wormtongue. What do you guys think of Wormtongue?
I love it.
I love Wormtongue.
I actually do think he's great. And
He's
yeah,
gross.
one of my favorite lines was, "I told you to take the wizard's staff," and he just
Yeah.
walks in, and this is the first time we get to see the chops of Gandalf the White,
Yeah.
which we can jump back
Big
to
time.
Fanghorn for a tiny moment.
Yeah, I
if we-
mean,
Yeah.
if we
Gandalf
want.
comes back.
Gandalf comes back.
Gandalf comes back as Gandalf the White.
Beard is
which,
shorter, hair is wider and
um,
straighter.
I think there's a lot of material we have for our final episode, which is past talking about the movies individually and talking about them collectively, talking about the
Right.
movies collectively. I have to
Yeah.
reiterate that because we're not talking about the authors so much. We're
Yeah.
talking about the depiction to film. But yeah, I think it's going to be really fun to talk about different views of resurrection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Between both series. But
Yeah.
I think it was, he's Gandalf the White now.
Ian McKellen's little smile that he gives me, he's like, Gandalf, that's what they used to call me, is so good.
Yeah.
Which is
perfect.
interesting. And I bring that up right now because it feels weird to do it at a place where he's one of my favorite characters in any movie ever. So I have a super dump because I've had such a hard time putting to words what this transformation really is. There's not
Okay. Yeah.
Tolkien has never really felt lazy. In fact, he's
Sure.
often felt the opposite. But for Gandalf going from gray to white, because you do this thing to where when you love something so much, so maybe I'm trying to introduce Jordan and Doge to a sport that I don't think they like very much. I want things to go well in
Any
the
of
first
them.
interaction.
Sure.
I want it to be like, oh, I buy into this, at least to give me some sliver of it. There's a part of me that's like, is someone who's so skeptical, going to look at that, and I haven't really met this person, but are they going to look at the Gandalf going from gray to white and just be like, oh, that was lazy?
So that's the kind of thing I feel like I can't see that with fresh eyes, because that's always like anytime I've known even of this story, it's like, well,
Right.
yeah, Gandalf dies, but he comes back. So maybe Jordan, you can speak into that. If you like the people that you watched it with who've never seen this,
Was there any kind of reaction?
what was
from
their
them on that?
read on that?
They were hyped up. I think the explanation of I died and I am more than immortal, and at the time when I died, I had a job left to do, so I was sent back stronger to complete my mission.
That's cool. Okay.
I think
Yeah.
I think that was sufficient for them.
And I get that. Yeah, that's good. And for me, it was, yeah, I don't know why, but it became a super dump. But I think I wanted, and maybe I selfishly just wanted more of Gandalf.
Sure.
Uh,
So this is your super dump. I want to be clear. This is
no,
your
it's my super
for the
dump.
movie. Okay.
Yeah, my super dump is just that I wish it had been explained more. But then
Yeah.
there's also times that I wrestle with maybe it's not for the sake of it not being. Like, why do we have to? Why do we have to?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times too, especially if you're comparing anyone to God, there is a sovereignty part of it
Sure.
that just says you're not supposed to know,
Yeah.
because it just happens. And so that's okay, but I've never really been clear either way. So it is a super dump for me.
Sure. And
Yeah.
I get that. It for some reason it's just never bothered me.
Yeah. I don't know
and
why.
again,
it did
I
for
think I'm
me.
with Doge a little bit of like, for me, it's just I was so young when I first saw these
Sure.
that it was like, yeah, that's probably totally right. And I've never
Yeah.
given it a critical second
Yeah, I
thought.
think I was 14 or 15.
Okay.
Yeah, see, we were like 7 or 8.
I wasn't even born yet.
I was fetus. But
yeah,
Rohan.
so Gandalf the White throws off his cloak. He's glowing. He shakes his staff around at Theoden and
Scares the Sauron out of him.
scares the Sauron right out of him.
What a
Um,
great scene.
Fantastic.
I realized that I just did my Gandalf voice for what Theoden says.
And
which
what a
is-
great actor as Theoden.
Oh,
Doge?
his graveside yell.
Dude,
Yes.
we usually try not to talk so much about the movie beforehand. Sometimes it's harder. I do know Doge has a strong opinion about Theoden.
Yeah, he's one of my very favorite characters.
Yeah.
He's so
His scene whenever he says, "No father should have to bury his children" or whatever. His performance at his son's grave,
So good.
probably for my money, the best acting in this movie.
Oh wow.
So very,
But
very
not your
good.
super pump, I noticed.
No, not my super
Interesting.
pump. We're
Okay.
getting very close to my super pump. Now that Theoden is an ally, we are in fact leaving Rohan on the road to my super pump.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So Theoden is a coward. Love his character. But part of what I love about him is that he is a coward who has decided, instead of to lead his people into battle to fight head on, that he would hide in a place that is ill-advised, and he takes them to Helm's Deep.
I don't know if I read that as cowardice so much as like, I've just spent however long being controlled by Wormtongue. I will not let you control me. I'm going to make my own decision. Even if it's the wrong decision.
Okay.
Like even
I'm,
it's
I'm
like where if
somewhere
you're
between for
like
the two of you.
where if you tell your little brother like, "Hey, please don't jump on my bed after I just made it." What's your little brother's immediately going to jump on your bed. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
cool. He would
like,
never do that.
I will not be controlled by you. Even if your idea is better, we have to do mine because I am king.
Sure. And I hear that. To me, that still reeks of cowardice.
Yeah. Maybe insecurity
Right.
in leadership.
But and don't get me wrong, I'm not faulting him for that. As a character, it's beautiful that his cowardice leads him into a worse battle than it would have been if he had met it head on. I think
Yeah.
that's poetic.
Makes for a
Yeah.
great scene too.
Oh my goodness. It
But-
makes for a super scene.
Hey now.
But he leads them to the fortress. What is the fortress itself called? Or like the outer layer of the fortress that he talks about? I can't remember. But he takes them to Helm's Deep
Yeah.
to fortify.
Yeah.
For this battle that's coming. You want to talk about that, Doge?
I mean, Helm's Deep is my super pump.
I assumed.
Is there any universe in which Helm's Deep is not my super pump? This is probably my favorite. It's actually much longer than I remember.
Yeah, it's great.
Favorite sequence in all of Lord of the Rings. Helm's Deep is just my very favorite part.
There was doesn't it feel like Lord of the Rings was one of those in terms of the DVD or Blu-ray box sets that maybe hung its hat the most on the extended stuff?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Can you think of any other series that had more? So, and I dove into all of it, and I remember them talking about Helm's Deep, and really almost as if they were in a war room, in production, in terms of they wear this because it serves this purpose.
Right.
They do these things, and I love the scene of the guy who's basically a suicide we're going to go through and blow up this wall guy.
Yeah.
That whole scene and like all of Legolas's arrows are not taking him down. But Aragorn's like, take him down, Legolas, you know?
Yes.
And my super pump is not necessarily Helm's Deep, but it is this, and I don't want to be too out there, but I think my super pump for Lord of the Rings in general, but especially in the Two Towers, how they have represented evil. Let me try and make this a way that it's more tangible. But the way in which, you've got the epic scene of Sauron saying, to war! Like, I remember, like,
what did he say?
To war! So my favorite movie, Silence of the Lambs, my fear only really rests in two people. In Buffalo Bill and in Hannibal Lecter. And that happens in so many movies. And sometimes war movies, the fear is just this collective evil of some foe. But what they've done in this is I'm just so worried for all of the people that I like.
Yeah.
Because I have these massive armies who they basically all have a Joker mentality. They don't really care what happens or who dies, even if it's on their side.
Right.
As long as they kill a good guy. And so like I remember just being so afraid. Tolkien created a world in which we have wraiths, we have the ultimate evil of Sauron, we have Saruman, we have Shelob, we have Uruk-hai, we have Orc, but it wasn't like he overdid it. And how did he do this?
Yeah.
The reason I can't explain it is the reason it's a super pump. The version of Lord of the Rings, so throughout history and throughout all of storytelling, good versus evil is almost always at the center. Lord of the Rings does it maybe the best that I can think of outside of like the Bible.
Sure.
And I
as
know,
far as a black and white, rarely gray representation of good and evil.
Yes, and I know that
completely
sounds
agree.
like I'm just drinking the juice of Lord of the Rings, but that's what makes it so. That's what makes it timeless to me. Is like the good versus evil representation is done so well in the books. But what I'm super pumping is what Peter Jackson did in the movies.
Yeah.
Like he has clearly made, but here's the thing. Almost everyone, because you put the ring in the middle of all of it and say, you know what? This thing can change the narrative.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now good can be evil. And so now it's like, I don't know. And that's what keeps you on your toes. Even if you've read the literature, you're saying, honestly, if this stupid little gold ring shows up, I might lose my favorite protagonist to antagonist. And it's brilliant. So that's my super pump.
You know what's crazy? No one puts on the ring for this entire movie.
Huh.
Really? In all of Two Towers?
At no point in Two Towers does anyone wear the ring.
That's awesome.
It's the only movie
And that's
in the
real
entire...
trivia.
Yeah, that's real
Real
trivia.
trivia.
It's the only movie in the entire
2.
Lord of the Rings saga in which no one ever wears the ring.
Cool.
He almost does in the Dead Martians. Martians?
The Dead Martians. Matt Damon never did get off that planet, did he?
The Dead Martians.
Just Martians with just bright green aliens with arrows in their throats.
Do you want to take a minute to dump on Legolas shield surfing down the stairs?
It's a little goofy, huh?
A little magoofy.
It's like Battle Magoo.
More
it's
than
like,
the Oliphant scene in the next movie?
No,
that's cool.
Well, then what's the difference?
Well, don't make me super dump on Return of the King right now.
Okay,
That's
sorry.
No, okay, we'll get there.
Sorry.
That's wild.
Hey, no different than what he did in The Hobbit. Actually, very different. He did the cheat scene in a Mario game.
The power of levitation isn't different.
That's quite different.
Yeah, the shield is a little goofy.
Any specifics in Helm's Deep that we need to talk about other than
the reason I brought up the good and evil now is when you have peeking over the horizon, Gandalf basically living out what he said would come to pass is look to the east. Here I am.
Return in the morning of the fourth
Guys,
day.
the wave of Rohirrim.
That was almost my super pump for this movie.
I'm getting goosebumps thinking
Me too. It's part of my super pump. My super pump is everything that happens at Helm's Deep.
Yep. Theoden's bravery to go back across the bridge just in time for Gandalf to come down. Woo.
I cannot make the jump off the dolphin.
That's a good one.
It's
also good.
It's just also good in there, and their death count is so high.
Oh my goodness. But I will say, this is going to be a bit of a spicy take.
Oh.
If you super dump on part of this beautiful, perfect
I'm going
scene,
to. My super dump lies in the Battle of Helm's Deep, and I don't know that it would have been a super dump 10 years ago. my bar for battles on a grand scale has been raised so high by current media that Helm's
Battle
Deep,
of the Bees.
Helm's Deep felt so slow up until about midway through.
Okay. Define slow in a battle scene.
I felt like nothing was really like the battle starts and it was just like nothing was really happening as far as I think I had set my expectations of my memory so high for Helm's Deep that when it came time to start, to me, it doesn't really ramp up and get interesting until the giant ladders start to smack on the wall.
So you didn't like the part with not that you didn't like it. I'm not.
No.
much of a
I
subject,
love all
but
of it.
So you're too dumb to enjoy the beginning.
Yes.
When the old man actually looses his arrow on accident too early.
See, that's great. That's a great starting scene, and that's a great way to start the fight is, oh no, we shouldn't have done that yet.
Right.
That's great. But the battle lines and approaching the wall and the scrambling and the getting ready, it all took so long that by the time the ladder started to land, my thought wasn't, oh boy, more. My thought was, finally.
Well, that's the kind of thing, because it is a weird battle. It's not like let's ride out to meet them.
No.
It's like we have to wait for them to come and hopefully we can hold them off.
I completely agree with you. And I actually think that's a brilliant place to put a battle.
Yeah.
I just think that the pacing of the battle itself was so slow. By the time the ladders start smacking the wall and things get going, it really ramps up.
Yeah. I can see that.
But I had...
Like if you're dumb and don't like good things.
It's like our show's subjective, Doge. But for me, it became... I really think I had just built it up so much in my head that when it came time for it, it actually fell a little short of my expectation.
Wow. So you're saying Helm's Deep did not meet your expectations?
By the time it was over, it had.
Okay.
But the beginning, I got that like feeling of self-consciousness in my stomach of showing these people this movie where I was like,
I think I like
man,
it.
I hope
Did it feel more like the anticipation took too long? Like the clicking of the roller coaster was longer than you thought? And you're like, let's just do this. Let's get to the good part.
To me, it felt more like the clicking of the roller coaster wasn't as big of a hill as I had built it up to be. Like I was like, the drop's going to be crazy. And then by the time we got to the top of the drop, it was like, oh, it's actually not that big. But then the second drop was like, oh, that's the scary one. Okay, I was wrong. That's the scary one.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I can see that.
Okay. Yeah. But it was still just like, I think I'm super dumping on maybe myself in a weird way, but I think I'm super dumping on maybe the way that the beginning of this battle has aged for me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I can totally see that.
Anything like I said, spicy take.
Yeah. Anything else we need to talk about?
Spicy take.
Anything else about Helm's Deep Jordan needs to ruin for us? Or is that the end of our discussion?
I think that's pretty much the end. We know we're going to go see Scary Spider Lady next movie.
Yeah.
Real excited about that. And by that, I mean, I hate it so much.
So many spiders in this series, Jordan.
Do you believe in spiders?
Do you believe in spiders?
I wish I didn't believe in spiders.
I hate them.
You know what I do believe in, though?
I bet it's science. Here at 2 Chunks and a Hunk, we have perfected the art of movie rating, and it is time to do just that just now. We have done this through the art of the school one, science. And that school one goes as such.
What?
No, keep it. Keep going.
The best thing we could ever say about a movie is own it, don't lend it.
Buy that poster.
The next best thing we can say is to buy it. After that, it's going to be rent it. That's going to be followed by stream it. After that is forget it. And last, but certainly least, God hath forsaken us. Who will go first? I will.
Forget it, right? Because of how dumb
Stop
Helm's Deep
it.
is.
This movie is an easy buy it for me. I love Sam, Frodo, and Gollum's storyline. Keeping up with them is almost worth, like, if the rest of the movie was just blank black screen until it went back to their scenes, it would almost be just as good for me. But yet, the rest of the movie is still the big three in our 2 little Hobbit wonderful boys off doing their... It's just so good. I'm never bored in this movie, except I can feel you, Doge. Except for like the first 6 minutes of the Helm's Deep battle where I'm waiting for it to ramp up. But other than that, I'm never bored. I love everything that happens in this movie. It is so much fun. Easy buy it for me.
I'm going next now. Thank you very much. I'm going next now. Buy the poster. I mean, I said at the beginning of the episode, it's my second favorite movie of all time.
I'm not surprised.
So people
by
are
the
having to like, there's a loophole here. Yeah, it's not adding up. There's just so many things. I mean, it is such wonderful storytelling on cinema. And again, it's, I can't reiterate enough that this is a podcast about how movies have been made.
Yeah.
I love the thought put into it. These movies were so good that I can't remember what I loved first, even though I read the books first. It was kind of the movies actually helped me a little bit because of the density of the books.
Yes.
But it's just clear representation and brilliant use of representation of a world that had been created long before with a lot of depth, and they pulled all the good pieces from here. I think it's tough sometimes when you have so much source material. If you're making a movie based off of something that's already existed before in another medium, it's got to be tough to know what to use. And this was always on my mind in this movie that, wow, they kind of picked what a wonderful combination and just made such a beautiful movie. And so I think it's a travesty that it only won 2 Oscars because it is my favorite of the trilogy. I get why they were like, you know what, we'll probably just wait till Return of the King and give them 11 next year. But it's phenomenal. I think it's movie history making. It's one of the best movies of all time. So I bought it.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy the poster as well. I mean, there is.
Yeah.
I know that we have each super dumped, so there are some things wrong with this movie, but there's virtually nothing wrong with this movie. Like,
Right.
This movie
Right.
is just incredible. Like every time we watch one of the real Lord of the Rings movies, I usually finish it by saying, you know what, that's probably my favorite movie we've watched for the podcast.
Yeah.
Like they're just so good, you guys.
Yeah.
They
Watch
are.
these movies.
They really are. Well, as we're coming to a close, one thing that we want to address with everyone real quick is here pretty soon, not next week, maybe not even the week after, but here real soon, we're going to start moving our shout out section of the show to the middle.
Yeah.
Because we want to make sure everybody gets their time in the sun. Want to make sure that everybody gets their name said, people can hear it. And so just be looking out for that here pretty soon, where we're going to take a break in the middle and give our shouties.
And speaking about making sure everybody gets their name heard, we have gotten a lot of shout outs, just been ringing off the
do
hook
some rapid fires.
in our absence. So I'm going to go rapid fire.
Here we go.
Real quack.
Real
quack.
Real quack. I'm going to quack it out like Donald Duck. We got Nate Blackley. We got Elise Evans. We got Kristen Mueller. We got Claudia Martinez, Colton Kingston, Callie-Ann Wonders, Seth Pittman, Taylor Hukulin, Jordan Green, and Daddy Swag.
Holy moly.
Papa Swag.
We've got a whole lot of them. So if you're...
That's one person for every Oscar Return of the King one.
Wow.
-1. That
I
was
thought that
10.
was 11.
That was 10.
No.
Wow. Okay, well,
Sorry.
Somebody else shout out.
so if you're
Please.
one of those people, if we just read your name, thanks
Thank
for
you.
shouting us out.
We love you.
Yeah,
Thank you so
extra
much.
shout out for Vince Kelly, who we all know very well.
11.
That's 11. We did it. But I'm anticipating something, and if anything, maybe I'm keeping him accountable too.
Okay.
Vince and Mariah are very much Potter heads.
Sure.
And so we have said some things, and we are not perfect, and I'm glad they're keeping us in check.
Well,
He has some good, educated opinions on J.K. Rowling's writing
Okay.
compared to Tolkien's writing.
Yeah.
And he's already shared some of these with me, and I kind of share his input on that. And so I'm excited to receive it. And I'm also excited too that like people aren't getting offended. It's a movie podcast. And so
Yeah.
we're saying these things on how much we love them both. But
so that'll be great content for us to talk about on our series bonus episode.
Our wrap up episode.
So we're going to be
Yeah, that'd be great.
a wrap up episode once Do You Believe in Magic is over, where we will be
So Vince, you don't have long.
yeah, we'll be sort of comparing these two series. We're going to go back and revisit who we selected as our road trip companions when we introed
Yes.
this series, and we're just going to kind of talk about these two great franchises that we both love.
Yeah, not to put too much pressure on us, but it just feels like with what we're going to talk about, this could be one of the best standalone episodes we ever do. I think it's so
No pressure.
interesting to
Yeah,
put these
no
two together. But I think that's great.
Final round of shout outs go to some of our iTunes reviewers. That goes to Here Comes Dat Boy 85829,
Yeah, here it comes.
Dre Dog, and Rootin' Tootin' Fan.
That's so good.
Guys, we need y'all to go review the podcast, and we're going to ask something of you that might seem inconvenient, but not nearly as inconvenient as dedicating 2 hours of your week to make a podcast. So please go and review on iTunes.
Yeah.
There's something about the Rotten Tomatoes criteria that asks that you review via iTunes. And the reason I
Weird.
mentioned Rotten Tomatoes is because if we can be at 200, almost this time next year, reviews, with an average of 4 stars. We're at 5, so we're sitting pretty. We can have the opportunity to be Rotten Tomatoes critics, which personally for the 3 of us,
It's a dream come true.
man,
Genuinely is.
honestly not something I thought could have been this close to possible.
Yeah.
So if you guys would do that, thanks. And
You can
those
help us
of
get
you,
there.
I'd say those of you that haven't subscribed, die.
Oh gosh.
Okay. Wow.
Carter.
That's a little harsher than we talked about it being.
I feel like we had a very specific conversation about this before
You said
the
keep
show
it short,
started.
and I said
Well,
die.
Carter,
we did
we-
say. I think we said keep it short and sweet. I
we
think is
kicked
what we
you
said.
out of this country for 2 weeks.
Die, please.
I mean, I can't really fault him on that.
Yeah, definitely do
One.
subscribe.
Yeah, please
We
subscribe.
would actually love that a lot.
Please.
You know, we normally like to get silly here at the end of the episode, but right before we do that, I want to end by once again saying, hey, I don't care who you vote for. I don't care what your reasoning is for voting for that person.
Yeah.
But if you live in the United States of America and you have the ability to vote, please do so.
Get your
Do it.
civic booty out to your civic duty.
Nice. It is important.
Yes.
It is
Gosh, I
important
love
to have
that.
your voice heard.
Yeah.
Please go do that.
Go vote. Guys, why don't we round this episode out by saying if you were to pick any person from the Lord of the Rings universe to run for Senate, to be a senator for Texas, where we're from. We don't shout out Texas enough, do we?
We don't shout out Texas enough.
Who would that be from the Lord of the Rings universe? And what I'm going to ask of you, not in real time, because we don't have to worry about real time. We're outside of real time. What I'm going to ask of you is to give me a slogan for this candidate on your sign out.
Well, in this case, for 2 chunks and a hunk, I'm Jordan Wonders, and I support Lord Elrond for Texas Senate because this eternal ruler is eternally cooler.
2 chunks and a hunk. I'm Cowboy Doge, partner, and I support Aragorn for Texas Senate. Aragorn will make this country a great place to live.
And I'm Carter. Vote.
Corner?
I'm Carter. Vote Mariodoc Brandybuck for Texas Senate. Because why not make every day in Texas merry and bright?